Hello, hello, hello. Sorry for the uh, delay on the start. It is Monday, February 13th, 2023, and we are in the latest rendition or version of Joe Daddy's Garage. I have a new stool tonight, trying to figure out where I need to be sitting for a good visual. I know everybody's really wanting to see me and, have fun with me taking up their screen. But I was delayed. I was out here, and you probably all know that I wear my reader glasses, and these are prescription, so they really are helpful. But I also have these, which are like your generic magnifiers, right? And so I was getting ready to start the stream, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I forgot my glasses. So I had to run into the house and grab my glasses. So I was delayed because I knew I couldn't do it with these. These magnifiers are straight up like 1.5 times or whatever, and that would have just messed me up to try to sit here and read this stuff. So sorry for the the delay. But I hope you all had a good weekend. I know that probably many of us watched the big game, as it's called, and unfortunately, things happen during those games, and you expect your the scores to go one way and end up going another way, and I guess the best team won. It was a good Super Bowl as far as that. Oh, I didn't say that. A good Super game as far as that goes. They always have that don't say this or copyright, whatever. So anyway, I hope y'all had a good weekend and watched the big Super game or whatever you want to call it. Tonight, let's talk about cars, right? And as you can see behind me, here's the 69 Mach 1 Cobra Jet that will be the hero in the upcoming video series. So we're working on resolving some sheet metal issues, coming up with parts and pieces. Unfortunately, there's maybe some delay, as we know, in some of these parts that will be required to fix up this car. So we're working on that. I did contact a Dynacorn supplier just right before we got on this, and hopefully he can pin down some parts for us. The main thing we're going to need is the windshield frame, windshield post, and part of the roof assembly. Of course, the A-pillars and stuff like that, but they don't sell those pieces individually. They sell them as a whole side, but they don't sell them individually. So either we need to find new Dynacorn sides and then section out what we don't need, or we need to find a donor car, maybe something that's got the back end smashed and can't be used. But we all know how that is. Everything can be rebuilt for the most part. But, that may be the scenario, that we have to either do one or the other. So, anyway, now you know. Let's see who's here tonight. Right off the top, Rick Stevenson. Glad you're here, Rick. Hope you're having a good week, good weekend and a good week upcoming. Appreciate you being here. Derek Pro, checking in from Australia. Hi, Rick. He's talking to Rick. They were both here early. Rick was here at 5:44, and Derek was at 5:51. So glad you're both here. I guess I gave a bell. I don't know. I'm still getting used to my new configuration here, so hang in there. Derek says, hi, everyone. Or hi, Barry. Everyone, hope all is well. Yes. Tommy checking in from the Busted Knuckle Garage in sunny for a change, Alabama. Yeah, we did have some sunny weather. Getting rid of that rain is a good thing. Terry Keithley. Hi, all, and Barry. Please hit the like and thumbs up button. Thank you kindly. Yes, thank you, Terry. Hey, you know what? This is a new feature. I replaced this stool, so now I can actually pivot. So I have to get used to that, too. Like, well, wait a minute. I'm losing my mouse. I got to get back over here. Rick's talking to Derek. It's going great. Okay. Rick Gain checking in. Greetings all. It was almost 60 degrees in New Jersey today. Looking forward to the end of winter. 2 bells for that. Glad you're here, Rick. Also looking forward to seeing how that 69 Fastback turns out. How long do you think it will take to complete? Great question. And a lot of it's going to depend on parts. The initial plan is to do all the sheet metal work, right? Get all the sheet metal taken care of, get it back to solid, and then we'll go from there. Now, my goal is less than a year, maybe even quicker, because this is, once I get, started on this, I will have to finish up the Bronco and then bounce back to this. But I think parts are going to be the big hold up at this point, as I mentioned earlier. I do have a game plan as to what I'm going to do with this. So, good question, Rick. Jerry checking in from the Money Pit in Middle Tennessee. Click the like button for Barry. Yes. Thank you very much, Jerry. Crash Rider. Good evening and greetings from Southern Indiana. My prediction on completion of this project is mid-October at the earliest. Be sure to hit the like button. That would be great. That would be great. And, it is possible. It is very possible. Troy Jessup, good evening from coastal Georgia. That's one messed up 69. Yes, it is. But, hey, it is a 69 Mach 1 Cobra Jet. So, by the way, bell for you, Troy. Donnie Williams, greetings. Greetings, Donnie. Glad you're here. Robert, evening all, 70 tomorrow, 75 by Wednesday, but back in the 20s for lows Thursday night. Yeah, we are having pretty much the same thing going on here. It's going to have some great midday temperatures, but as we know, that's not consistent. It drops down, becomes a problem, and isn't conducive to the whole paint thing. But glad you're here, Robert. And Harvey, Robert, that sounds like a temperature roller coaster. And it is. It is. I know in my case, if I pull up our weather, we're going to have, for the highs, 65 today, 66, 64, 71, 62, then it goes to 55. And the lows are going to be 40, 50, 56, 35, 29, 34. So, yeah, all over the place. Glad you're here, Harvey. Evan's Garage. Hi, all. Hi, Evan. Glad you're here. Dawn's Manufactory. Hello, folks. Temperature falling. Snow tonight and tomorrow. You can have it, Dawn. You can have all the snow. Mr. Mikey. Barry, that is going to be one big project. Glad to be here to watch and learn. Warm in southern Texas today. Robins are flying north. Glad you're here, Mr. Mikey. Troy saying, Robert, I don't think I can live in Texas. The temperature swings are crazy. Yeah. I guess it depends on which part of Texas. Bob Shoemaker, good evening from 65-degree Oklahoma. Better tomorrow. Just hope my luck is, I guess, in shop is better too. Well, let's hope so. Glad you're here, Bob. Elijah Hall. Thank you, Barry, for another Mustang. You are welcome, Elijah. I know you've been commenting a lot on the videos, asking for more Mustang. I know. I've been working on the Bronco and doing some sort of infomercial type of stuff as well. But it's hard. That stuff is hard to turn down. Whenever somebody's offering a good product line or something, I got to take advantage of it while I can, But yeah, I know you've been asking for more Mustang, so you will be getting more Mustang videos, and I will be, of course, adding in some Bronco stuff as well as I go along. Rick says, my idea of a super game is a toilet that cleans itself. Bowl that cleans itself, yeah. Terry Keithley just finished a bowl of ham and beans with cornbread. Oh, results are pending. That sounds really good. Let me tell you right now, my wife is making chicken pot pie. Looking forward to that later tonight. Harvey, hello, Barry. Liked the introduction to the 69 Mustang. Well, good. I figured I did it justice, walking around, showing it, talking about it. So, thank you, Harvey. Evan's Garage, is the list of what you can save from the 69 very long? No. Honestly, it's not. But it is what it is. I wish there was more of the car that could be saved to that extent, But as we've gone over it, me and the owner went over it, and it just, it just has so many problems in a variety of areas. That, no, there won't be a lot, but there will be some of it. I will say that. There will be some. Good question. Thank you, Evan, for being here. Leonard. Evening all. How's everyone doing? Glad you're here, Leonard. Rick Stevenson. My son's WRX came up with a cylinder 4 misfire. Turned out to be a loss of compression in number 4. Leak down shows a loss through the intake. So it's either got, I don't know if it has a plastic manifold, because a lot of these cars have those plastic manifolds. So I know that those tend to have a problem. Could be the manifold, obviously it could be the gasket, but if it's leaking back through the intake, then yeah, it's going to be one of those two more than likely. Richie Rich, love the 69 intro. Thank you, Rich. Richie Rich. Lightning Rod, checking in from Pennsylvania. Got a seatbelt on that stool. Thumbs up. Yeah. It's like, whoa, I can turn all over the place right now. Eric Johnson, checking in from Hampton, Tennessee. Well, actually in Live Oak, Florida. 68 here today. Looking forward to watching all the vids on this build. Thank you. Glad you're here, Eric. Harvey, I think you get the entire superhero team involved. The 69 will. I think if you get the entire superhero team involved, the 69 will fly together. Yes, that would be nice. Bo Diddley, checking in from Washouga, Washington. 98671. Possible snow tomorrow here. Well, you can have it. I hate snow. I do. I hate it. It's nice to look at, but I don't want to be in it. I don't want the temperatures involved with it, but it sure is nice to look at. Dave Britton checking in from the Great White North. Glad you're here, Dave. Shane, the 69 Mustang is going to be a nice project. The Bronco turned out to be more than you anticipated. It did. I mean, that's accurate. That's an accurate statement. And, you know, I agreed to do the Bronco in hopes that we would have good weather and all those sort of things. And I obviously didn't expect to have to redo or modify, and you know how it is. So that's okay. That's kind of why he wanted me to do it. The reality is there's a lot of people that would have done it, probably could have done it, and just painted it and sent it out the door and said, good luck, hope everything fits. But that's the reason I tell everybody, test fit, test fit, test fit. Make sure it's all good. Jerry, howdy Barry, howdy all from 70-degree Miami. Such a wonderful night. Robert would actually enjoy, but alas, he's not here. Well, you'll have to just make up for it yourself. Just enjoy yourself while you're there. Have a good time. Glad you're here. Tommy, have you determined how much of the 69 you'll be able to save? It's gonna be pretty limited. It's just the reality of it. I'm trying to do what I can. It looks like I want to keep the quarter panels, at least the bulk of the quarter panels. So we're probably going to use the 80% skin and just use patch panels on the bottom. That way it still has the original quarters on it, and the inner structure for that. Part of that goes up into the roof. And then from there, it's going to be rocker panels. And that may be where we're at, honestly. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult, but that's what it is. Tommy says it could be the intake bleed valve, Rick. That could be. I don't know. Rick, will you be doing the paint on the 69? That's up in the air right now. It is. Because, you know, I can paint, but paint stresses me out the most out of anything. And, you know, I'm agreeing to do the Bronco because, like I said, friend of mine, and the original idea was that it was a ready-to-paint type of vehicle, wouldn't have to go back and forth and all that sort of thing. So we're going to debate on the paint process later on. So, good question. Chris Greenaway, hello, gang. Hello, Chris, also from the Great White North. Glad you're here. Dave Britton, Barry, did you have a snowmobile when you lived north? Yes. Yes, I've talked about this a couple times. This will be a relatable junkyard story. I guess I could put the banner up, right? Let's go. I've done this before. I've talked about this before, but we'll do some little junkyard story time since you asked. There was back in the 70s, it was, I can't remember what companies were out there, whether Arctic Cat was probably the big one. Of course, there was Ski-Doo. Later on, Yamaha came on board and different companies. But back in the day, there was a company called Snow Pony. Yep. And it was like SNO hyphen or dash and then the word pony. And my dad had this idea. I've talked about this before, but I'll share it again. He had this idea that he wanted to get some snowmobiles. But he obviously didn't want to pay the same price as everybody else. He wanted to get them at a discount. So he contacted this company called Snow Pony and decided to become a dealer. And they agreed to that, however he did it, I don't know. And I think he ended up with 4 snowmobiles that he was supposed to be a dealer on, which I think he just bought as with the discounted price, I guess. But these things were pretty unique. The Snow Pony had an option that you could put tires on it. I don't know if anybody else ever did that with a snowmobile. It had an insert. You took the skis off the front and you put a post in that had a big balloon tire on the front. And underneath where the belt attached, in the back where you had a carrier on the rear, just a dummy carrier for the back of the belt, it had an axle with teeth on it that matched the carrier, and it just bolted in. And so it had tires on the back like this wide, like 10 inches wide and about maybe 10 inches tall. So you basically created a 3-wheeler with a belt on it, like a snowmobile belt. And we rode those around quite a bit. And I think they all rusted away, went away. And later on, we ended up having, I don't know, some Arctic Cat or something. I don't remember exactly. We had a few that we would fire up and ride around and have fun with. So yeah, we did have snowmobiles. But I think our biggest thing we enjoyed in the winter was our 3-wheelers and 4-wheelers. That was probably the most fun of anything we had. Good question. Thank you, Dave. Rick says, don't want numbers, but how do you bill for working on the 69? Well, that's we've talked about that. Me and the owner have talked about that. We have a ballpark number, A to B, basically at this point. And actually what I'm going to do, it's funny you brought this up. What I'm going to do is a couple things. One, I really hate tracking time. I just hate it. When I get into something and I'm working on something and I want to work on it, and then if I decide to stop and go get something to eat or whatever, I don't want to sit here and write down blah, 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 blah. So this, I'll show you. I have a new addition to the shop. It's right here. It's my counter. So what I'm going to do with this is counting up. So every time I'm working on it, I can hit the counter and I can hit stop, let the timer run when I come back, start it again. And this is going to help me track my time. I think I'm overdue for something like this. Because normally I would take like a notebook and write down, I think I worked 4 hours. And I don't want to do that. I want to accurately have time. So that's going to be one thing. And another thing, I don't have it out here yet, is I'm going to do like a planner, like a notebook planner. And those days, whatever days whatever I do, I'm going to write it down and put in, because the owner wants a kind of a log sheet kind of format of what is installed. So later on, he has a record of the pieces and parts by part number that are in the car. And I'm fine with that. So I'm going to use the planner, and every day write down, I'll have my time sheet, my time count, but I'll also write down, replaced X with part number X, something like that. So that's going to be my goal, is to help be more accurate in my numbers. So good question, Rick. My bell's getting blocked. Chris is saying Dave Britton most useless thing this winter. Anyway, I guess he's talking about snowmobiles. Crash Rider, almost all of Joe Daddy's projects are more than he anticipates. Lucky for us. Well, the difficulty with, I don't know. It's part of it is that they are become more complicated, but part of it is I'm also, I don't cut corners, as y'all know. I just can't. I don't like to see this or that or the other not done right. In fact, there's a story about Chip Foose that had gone around for a while. And Chip Foose, I have a picture of him somewhere, autographed picture for Joe Daddy's garage. Chip Foose has been known for whenever he builds a car or truck or whatever, that there's a lot of detail that he puts into stuff that you cannot see. Like he'll restore something and make inside the torque box, he'll want to do make it perfect like it was at the factory and put overspray in there or something, just to make it look like it was. And, people would say to him, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that? People can't see that." And I think his response was, "They can't, but I know it's there. And I know how it's supposed to be, I know it's right," and that kind of mindset. And I kind of think I'm geared a lot in that same way. I think maybe Chip Foose has changed some of that thinking over time, but I know where he's coming from. And even if there's certain things that weren't done well at the factory, I would like to maybe not copy what they did exactly, but put it to where it probably should be. An example of this is, and I know this is kind of crazy when I talk about that light blue Mustang that I did many years ago. I counted the spot welds on each side of the car. Fred on one side doing the spot welds, and Tom on the other side doing the spot welds, and they had a different mindset. I don't remember the numbers, but Fred decided I need to have 40 spot welds on this side, or he just started ka-chunk, 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 and got lost in a maze of thought and just put in 40 spot welds. Meanwhile, Tom is on the other side talking to Bill. "Hey, yeah, it's Tuesday," and he puts in 23. Now, the reality is that was a factory setup. That's what they did. Is it right? No. There's probably a number that they're supposed to be. Is it 23? Is it 40? I don't know. I doubt there's any history of that says there should be 37 spot welds in those rocker panels. Now, I put that car back the same way as what they did, and I think I added in more spot welds to make it, kind of the same on both sides. But that's the point, is this is how it was made, but you want to make it as it was intended to be, not maybe with the mistakes that other people made. So, anyway, I kind of got off on a rant there. Thanks, Crash Rider. Rick, I told my son that we wouldn't know for sure what the problem is until we get it apart. That's very accurate. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to. Somebody calls you up on the phone and says, "Hey, my car's making this noise. What is it?" I don't know. But I get what you're saying. You got to figure out what's in there. Leonard, if it turns out like that 70 you did, it'll be a great job. He says job is what he meant to say. Yeah, the 70 turned out fantastic. Yeah. Thank you, Leonard. Chris, Barry loved the snowmobile people in my area. The Christmas blizzard neighbor has been tinkering all year. He pulled it out before the snow plows the one morning and went around the block. Then 3 days later, there was no snow. Last week, they groomed the trail last week. So, now you can see grass. Most infuriating thing to own. Yeah, I could see that. Dave Conville, good evening. I'm late. You get the late bell. Dave Britton, the problem with the time and materials is the time it also takes to also move the camera and change view angles. All will drive you crazy. We don't know half of what you go through. That's true. That is true. There is time involved with setting up the cameras. And I will say this. What I've learned over all this time, hundreds of videos that I've put out, what I've learned about the video stuff is I almost feel like it almost feels odd to not have a camera running. Let's put it that way. It does. And with what I'm trying to do now, or more so in the last few months, is more time-lapse stuff. I know that everybody wants to see results, but they don't want to see me drilling 27 holes. They'd rather, in over a course of 10 minutes, they want to see 27 holes in 10 seconds. And so I'll have the time-lapse camera running, and what you don't see in that effect is I may have the time-lapse camera running, and sometimes I'll show it, sometimes I won't. But I will pause, pull out the other camera, and while that one is still running, I will do a shoot and talk about what's going on and what I'm trying to do, and then I resume what I'm doing. So when I do the editing, I'll slice out that section that it has me in there talking with the camera. In most cases, I will edit that out. That is the things that don't come into this either, like the time for editing. I mean, it'll be hours in most cases to make a video. And then that helps if the computer's running right or not running right. That becomes a problem as well. So yeah, there's a lot of variables that come into play, but the camera stuff isn't so critical anymore because I'm so used to it, and I'll turn it on, I talk about my introduction or whatever, and then do my inserts, and so it seems to work pretty well. Okay, Evan's Garage. There's an app I've used workshops called the Time Tracker, useful for tracking time, especially on multiple projects. I could see that. The problem I have with that is I don't want to pull out my phone. For me, the phone becomes a distraction because I have so much going on with social media between Facebook, Instagram, of course, YouTube, TikTok, all those things that, and then I try to keep the phone away from me. For one, I don't want to damage the phone. Like I'm doing some welding or something. I actually had a safety screen on this, and I had a piece of weld hit that thing, and I thought it burned the screen on the phone, and it messed up the safety screen, let's say. So anymore, I try not to even have the phone near me, and I don't want to pick it up and go, dit, 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 dit. Where's my timer? That's just another step. This little thing here, it's magnetic. You can hang it somewhere if you wanted to, and it's rechargeable, so I can just, boom, hit the button. So I like that. Jeff, glad you're here, man. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you. You're awesome. Let's see where we're at. Mr. Mikey. I see an Excel spreadsheet in your future. Yeah, that's probably something that'll come into play. Yeah, there'll be something that comes into play along those lines. Evan says hours tracker. Yeah. Yep. Rick, Stacy David offers a project planning book, which may be of some use for this type of project. Yeah, I could see that. I just bought, like I said, a planner that has, good lines on it, spacing every day, boom, boom, boom. I can, make my notes and keep track of stuff. I don't want to overcomplicate it either. That's the thing. And then when I go to the computer, I sit down and go, hey, I need to play a game of chess. Derek, I actually do that also when I invoice. It was an easy day by day with dates and times. There's a lot of trust involved, but as you say, many hours of extra work and details that are not seen. Yes, very much so. Doyle, does the owner want to shave the drip rails on a Mach 1 or replace them? No, they're going to be put back on. It'll be back to look like a normal everyday car. Yeah. Ray, evening, very and all. Really going to love the videos of 69 to watch it evolve from rusty to a clean car. Yes. It's going to be, it'll be a challenge. And I've said it before. I've told people this. I love a challenge. I really do. I love the problem solving that has to be going on. It makes my mind tick. It really does. And I've already been, going to bed thinking, okay, this. So I'll just give kind of a basic rundown of where my mind is for the moment. The car itself, I'm gonna have to add some reinforcement. I already know that. I'm gonna reinforce it so that it stays in the shape that it's in, as square as possible. I'm gonna use my new jig that I built. Yeah, I'm gonna set the car on it and use my jig mounts and everything else, and I'm gonna add some more mounts underneath the pinch welds. I'm going to make some carriers that'll hold the bottom of the pinch welds. The idea there is, once I get to the point where I'm going to cut the floor out of the car to start with, I say to start with, that's where my mind is right now, is cut the floor out, and then I'll put the pan on the trailer jig, get it positioned, and have those mounts, whatever I use, perches to hold the pan in place. And then when I set the body back, it should all line up. It should. There should not be any variable there. Along with that, I can locate the front frame rails where they are on this car, make sure they're in the right place. And then when I put the new ones in, same deal. I can have the body positioned and have the frame rails match up to the floor supports. So it'll all come together. I know it will, but I just have to make sure I have my, again, sequence right. Sequence is scored. Rick Stevenson, my 68 has a lot of the same problems as the 69 you're working on, although not quite as bad. Yep. By the way, Rick, got a little, what do I got there? Got some coffee going. Thank you. Okay. Tom Reyes. Hi, Barry. Hey, everyone. Electric fan or mechanical fan. 70 Mustang 302 automatic. I guess automatic. What would you recommend? Thank you. Love your videos and great knowledge about how to restore and rebuild my son's car. It should be Tomas, right? Or should I just say Tom? Electric fan or a mechanical fan? I would say, here's the thing. Mechanical fans are fine. They do what they're intended to do. I think you want to make sure you have a shroud. And if you don't have AC, shouldn't be that big a concern. I think you'll be fine with a regular fan and just how it was configured originally. I mean, the electric fans are nice. They serve a purpose. And it helps, it depends on what you're wanting for an end result. Like, I have the electric fans in Jade, but I didn't have a shroud for the original radiator, and that kit was actually offered to me as part of my programming. So that's partly why I went with that. But I think, you're fine with a mechanical blade, belt-driven blade, or fan blade, and the shroud. I don't think that should be a problem. Hope that helps. Anybody else has an opinion, by all means, let me know. Chris, the thing I don't understand, owning a project car, always a nice day to ride, owns a boat, always a calm day on the lake. Snowmobile owners, there's too much soft snow or not enough snow. Well, yeah, but that's it's in the name, snowmobile. Although I have seen people ride them on grass, they'll go on grass too. But yeah, that's the thing. They gotta have snow, for the most part. Like farmers with rain, they beg and complain when they get too much. Well, yeah, it's definitely can be. You definitely want to balance. Definitely want to balance. Too much rain is a really bad thing for farming. I know that for a fact. Just like not enough rain. So, got to have the happy medium, and that's with just about everything. Derek, doing it that way also helps keep you track along with photos, etc. Our memory gets worse as we get older. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Abe, hello from Eastvale, California. Your videos are thumbs up. Thank you, Abe. Glad you're here. Don, the problem with any hours tracking system is the discipline to maintain it. You're dead on right there. I had thought about the idea of a chest timer was one of my ideas because it's a very mechanical thing. You hit the timer on the chest timer. Yeah, it means it's time for the other person to run, or to play their piece, but it's also a very mechanical thing. And this isn't as obvious, this little timer, but it's going to be right here at the door every time. And it is a discipline thing. I will say that. I know what I don't like about what I do at times is I like working on a Bronco. I'll be doing something, and then I'll either get distracted, like somebody will call me, or my wife needs me to do something, or a delivery shows up. And so I have to step away for that 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. And then it's like, oh, what time did I start? Type of thing, I think with this little timer, I got to start. Okay, I'm stepping out the door, stop. Come back, start, stop. And I'll just make that a habit, like everything else that I do in life. Anytime I walk out the door, my left hand, it hits my pocket for my wallet, hits my thigh for my phone, and I hit my other hand for my keys, and I say, okay, I can walk out the door now. And it's funny because I'll walk out the door if I'm going somewhere, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but that paranoia that builds in you, because one time I left and I didn't pull the door shut, and my wife had gotten up later, I forget where I went, and the door was open, and she freaked out. I don't blame her. So now every time I go out of the house and I lock the door, I'll physically grab that doorknob and almost try to twist it and push on it, and I have to say in my mind, door is locked. Door is locked. And then I can walk away. So it's just these little things that you play in your head. So that's the same thing I have to do, is develop that rhythm with this timer. Time on, time off, whatever. You get the idea. Robert says, exactly, Don, I would start off okay, then stop messing with it. Yeah, I won't do that. I'm pretty anal about some of this stuff. Rick, you will need a new name for the 69 when done, as it won't be crunchy anymore. Yeah, that's true. We were trying to come up with a quick name for it, and crunchy just seemed to fit. Crunchy just seemed to fit because that's, you could grab onto it and so and I wanted something with Cobra Jet in it. So at this point, that's what it is. Car Guy Trailer looks like you get to use the boat trailer jig. Yeah, that is right. And I'm actually excited about that. I ran into one problem. I think one problem. When I went to take the 68 back off of the trailer jig, because I built it with the car in position, right? I built it under the car. I didn't think about this till later. The forward shackle spring perch mounts, where the leaf spring bolts in. When I made the pieces, because I wanted them to be accurate, I wanted them to be dead on, I just drilled the hole the correct size. And that's good. That's all well and good. The problem I ran into was getting the bolts back out. Because I put that in there, and although they were centered, I made sure that there was play in them when I welded everything in. When I tried to take the bolts out, I had to play with the height of the car a little bit. I had to play with the lift to get tension off of those bolts. So I got to thinking about it. I'm like, well, what could I have done differently? Well, what I'm going to do different is I'm going to create a V where the hole is right now in the bottom, or in the opening, or the square tubing. I'm going to make that a tapered notch so that whenever I go to put the next vehicle on, I'm not having to sit there and try to bump around the lift until I get the hole lined up. The idea now would be that I put the bolt in the forward shackle mount. Just put it in there, loose. Lower the vehicle, line up the post, and let it just settle, and that's going to help square everything up as well. So that's one improvement I'm going to make on that for sure. And then, as I said, I'm going to add in the perch mounts on the sides to hold where the pinch welds are. And I think that's going to help me zero out everything, floor pan to rocker panels. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting it all set up. Dave, what was under the hood from the factory? It was a 428 Cobra Jet. Yep, shaker hood and all. Yep. Dave, yeah. Chris is saying Dave, 428 Cobra Jet. Car Guy Troy, engine transmission plans for the 69. Okay, I know that he's going to put a bigger transmission in it. I can't remember the number right now. It's not going to be a C6. It's going to be the overdrive big boy transmission. I don't remember what the number is. And we're going to have to probably modify the transmission tunnel slightly to make room for that. And I think the engine, what he plans to do is keep the 428 as on the side, and do a restoration on it at some point. So if I remember correctly, I think he said he was putting in a 427, but it was going to be a custom-built 427, board and stroke something. I don't remember the specifics. So I think that's the plan, is some sort of board and stroke 390 or something. It's going to become a 427 numerically, or something along those lines. And, of course, the bigger transmission. So that's my understanding of it at this point. Terry Keithley, Barry, my wife wants to know, could you handle the challenge of cat posters in the shop? Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to have a choice between actual cats or cat posters, I'll take the posters every day. Yes. If that's my choice, that's what I'll take. Dave Tyson, how is sound system? It's awesome. It really is. I got everything hooked up the way I want it. I've been using it, playing straight off my phone. I've said it before. I listen to 96 Rock. If any of you have looked up 96 Rock, what I like about using that app on iHeartRadio is 96 Rock, there's no commercials. The only commercials they put on there at this point is for the radio station or little snippets of parts of their old station. If you listen to another genre or another, let's say you punch up a regular radio station, it's going to have all kinds of commercial junk on it. Or if you do Spotify, if you're not paying for it. I mean, if you're paying for it, that's another thing. But I like 96 Rock and what they play. And it's going to be very beneficial to have my tunes cranking out here. Good question, Dave. I don't know if you were here earlier or not, so you get the bell for that too. Dave Britton, oh yes, I seem to recall that. Yeah. Yep. Michael Pagliarini, hello all. The timer's a good idea. I give up tracking time on my own project. I spend way too much time being a perfectionist. My own biggest, I guess, critic is what he's saying. Yeah, I understand that. Yep. Dennis Paulson, hello Barry and gang. 36 degrees Fahrenheit in Western Canada with the sun. Hope all is well. Well, that's cold enough. Glad you're here. Chris, my car buddy, said what makes a good paint job isn't the 100 plus hours of sanding, 50 hours of spraying and wet sanding. It's the 200 hours that we don't see, does he slam or gently close the hood? Yeah, I mean, there's variables like that do come into play. Yeah, there's lots of things. I mean, there's lots of things come into play when you do get paint work done, and then later on how it's treated. So yeah. Rick, I guess you remember to turn the air compressor off tonight. Yes, I did. Leonard, watching you build those two Mustangs and how you put them together and not cutting corners says it all. Thank you, Leonard. 69 Stang says, hey, everyone. Glad you're here. Derek Pro, in the Resto game, many hours we redo things that we are not happy with for ourselves, not necessarily the customer. It helps the finished product satisfying for us and, in the end, the customer. That is very accurate. I've run into that many times. When I was doing the 65 Mystique Mustang, the quarter panel was one of the things that was bugging me. The passenger side quarter panel, the owner provided a patch piece. And, I very much could have just gone and put that patch piece on there and just blended it in with body filler and just turned my eye to it. But I couldn't. It had to be the right shape. It had to be, the right contour at the bottom. Body line had to be correct. And so that's why I went ahead and I bought that. I think it was an 80% skin, and I cut that piece out because that was correct. Same way with this car. There's going to be some patchwork done on the quarters, but typically the patch doesn't have the right shape to it. So I told the owner, I said, get the 80%, and then I can cut off what I need instead of just trying to, use a generic piece to make it work. Tom, thank you, Barry. I will give it a try. 15-inch mechanical and 24 cold case radiator and shroud, and Tom is perfect. Okay. Doyle could be Captain Crunch after it's done. Could be. Don's Manufactory Cobra Crunch sounds like a cereal. Hey, that would be a good one. You could make little Mustangs. Well, I'll be honest something. Like little little Mustangs. Of course, you could use the Cobra itself as a secondary piece in the in the cereal crunch. Chris says Crunchy Jet. Being an airline, I don't want to say Crunchy Jet. Derek, Tremec T56. No, it's a. I think it's similar to the transmission that was going in the Brooklyn Pony car. I don't remember the numbers, but it's an automatic with overdrive. That's my understanding. Rick, any idea what happened to the original engine from the car? I think he has it. My understanding, he has the engine. Initially I thought that the engine was gone, but we talked later and he said he still had it. And I believe he's going to set it aside again and go through it. Steve Harris, what part of Georgia do you live in? I am south of Atlanta, about 25 miles. Straight south. Ronnie Rose, very cool. Can't wait to see when it's finished. Yep. Glad you're here, Ronnie. Oh, and also Steve. Dave, has he talked about leaving it original color or not? That's a good question. I don't know. He may have mentioned it, but I don't remember. But I know it's some sort of green. I don't know if it's a Highland green, but it's definitely green, is what I'm seeing. Car Guy Troy 470W trans, maybe then that would be cool. Overdrive will be nice. I think they have adapters now for the FE motor. Okay, well that may be it. I was thinking there was a 10 in there somewhere. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Mr. Mikey, Cobra Jet Crunch. Dennis, my 64.5 Mustang will be called Nightmare because I parked it 30-odd years ago with the last 10 years in my shop. Yeah. Yep. Dave Tyson, AOD. Yeah, it'll be an AOD, but I think it's going to be the big... Maybe it's a 470W. Maybe that's what it is. But yeah, it's going to be a bigger transmission. Ray, the great thing is that you can provide photos and the videos from the build as well. That is very much true, yes. Richard, looks like about the same condition as the K code I have. It will have to be a Resta mod because the engine and top loader are long gone. Okay. Yep. Yeah, and this car, it's an automatic car. It's an automatic. Derek says green or blue. Yeah, depending on what your camera picks up. Could be one or the other. Yep. You know, in talking about this car, obviously we have a laundry list of parts. And again, the hard part is coming up with the windshield frame pieces, the post, because 69 is different. I mean, a coupe is different. The coupe has a different angle. It's not as steep, so even the windshield is different between the coupe and the fastback. Whereas the earlier cars, I believe they were all the same, but in this car they made it the angle different. And so I had thought about the idea of maybe finding a donor 69 coupe and just using pieces to try to rebuild, but there's so much that just really can't be saved that it's going to have to more than likely be, get the whole side of the car. So we're talking with, I talked to a guy out in Utah who is building vehicles out there. He's a Dynacorn dealer, and he's going to check to see what his chances are of getting those pieces. So he's going to email me back, and we'll see what happens. Currently, the list was sent to Dynacorn, and I think they shared it with a dealer in the area of Florida where the owner's from. So currently, that stuff's not available. The real difficulty is they only sell them as a complete assembly, which I think is a mistake, but I get it. Dynacorn, it makes more sense to them as just to sell the whole thing, and you deal with cutting it up or whatever you want to do, rather than sectioning out a piece or having X part of it made, even though they already make it, and they could sell those pieces separately. If you go back into 67, 68, I know CJ Pony sells, you can buy the whole side as an assembly, and I think for $300 less, you get it in pieces. And I've actually been thinking about that whenever it comes time to do the 67. I may get the pieces. I'm really debating on whether I want to do that or not. Partly to save some money, but also, I don't need to replace the rocker panel. When you get the whole side, it gives you everything, including the rocker panel. And I don't need that. With the piece kit from CJ for the 67 and 8, the loose pieces you don't get the rocker panel, I think, is what the end result is. And plus, it should save on shipping, because instead of having the whole side shipped, which is expensive, you can have the pieces in a box, I think. And I've had people tell me that it's not that hard, they say that, to put those pieces together and get it to look right. So that's kind of where I'm playing with those ideas on the future 67 Fastback. And of course, I have too many cars sitting here. I've got the, Jade, which I probably need to go ahead and sell. And then I've got the Polko 68, which will probably be the replacement for Jade. That's kind of where I see it happening, is that one will be the replacement. And then I've got the Red Dave car, and then the 67 as well, of course. And I also have the Camaro to finish. So, and that's another thing I got to do. I got to get parts for that. So there's always something that I either have to track down or go look at or come out, go get parts for. And I really miss the fact that Mustangs Unlimited is not in the Atlanta area, because that was really good. I could go there and hand pick out the pieces that I want, basically, and now I can't. So I have to kind of just see what shows up in most cases. Let's see, Dawn. I can get my hands on 2 top loaders. One needs work. Well, I have thought about the idea. Like, the red car is actually a 3-speed manual car. So I had thought about, if I ever get that far, would I put in a 3-speed or go back to a 4-speed or something like that? And then you run through the debates of, well, do I do a regular 4-speed or do I do the 5-speed conversion, which makes sense. Like the Polka Mustang. Right now, I'm kind of like automatic's cool, but maybe I want to put a 5-speed in it. So there's all kinds of things that my mind goes to, and of course that can all change. Of course, and what I could do is make one a stick and the other one an automatic, and then, drive them on different days, right? Car Guy Troy, do they make all the replacement parts, roof and all, for that year? They make them, but they only sell them as an assembly. That's the difficult part. Chris is trying to hide the Mustang moniker. Okay. Troy, I think I know the guy who you speak of in Utah. There's a couple of people here that are Dynacorn affiliated. Yeah. The guy in Utah is Nick, if that rings a bell. And we actually, we've emailed each other several times over the last couple of years. And he recently contacted me about the Bronco, because he's starting to build Broncos. And so we've discussed the idea of me buying the sheet metal from him to build a Bronco body, which I really would like to do that. And we're trying to work out the details. Currently, the owner of the Bronco, who knows, seems like everybody in the Bronco world, he may be able to come up with a basic jig for me. And if I can get the jig, to me, it's just a matter of putting pieces together. Now, that sounds easy enough. There's probably problems that I don't know about. But anyway, yeah, that's something else that's on my mind, way off to the side. Rick, did that car suffer from the flood Florida had last year? I don't think so. It was. It wasn't that far south. It was in north Florida. Richard, freight would be more expensive than the trans at Dawn's Manufactory. Oh, talking about getting the 4-speed. John Valuk. I'm guessing Valuk. Late to the show, evening all. That's it. Glad you're here, John. Hope I said that right or got close to it. Derek, sounds like you got enough to work to get through till retirement. But I think we'll never retire. I love it too much. Yeah. Retirement is never really a retirement. I'm just gonna keep on chugging away and working on this stuff. Richard, National Parts Depot is 20 miles from my house, so I don't have to pay for freight. It makes a big difference on big parts. I don't know what I'm hearing. I'm either hearing somebody's loud stereo system somewhere or somebody revving up an engine somewhere. Can't tell. Yeah, that was the thing with Mustangs Unlimited. I could just drive up there with my trailer, load up all my stuff. In fact, that's what I did whenever I started on the Brooklyn Pony. I went up there and got all the pieces and parts in boxes, and I got the floor pan and all that stuff. And the crazy thing is, I get up, I'm buying all these parts from these people, and I'm getting the floor pan, a Dynacorn floor pan, and they wouldn't help me load it. Figure that out. They wouldn't help me load it onto my trailer. They said I could back my trailer up to the loading dock, and they would push it to the edge of the dock, and then it was on me to get it from there to my trailer. And I'm like, really? And there was like 4 of them there. And I'm sure there was some company policy that says they couldn't do anything. But I had to muscle that thing onto my trailer by myself. Like, 2 of those guys could have picked up one end of it. It's not that heavy. And just helped me get it on there. But they wouldn't do it. They just stood there and watched. I'm like, really? I couldn't even do that. Even if I was working there, I couldn't do that to somebody. I would bend over and pick up that part and start moving it. But then again, that was me. Not everybody's like that. Leonard, what did you say from What did you save from that BP Rust piece? I saved most of the rear seat area, the inner structure for the where the quarters come around, that inner structure there. I saved that, even though I had to rebuild that bottom half of that framework for the seat, that structure that holds the roof and all that stuff. I had to rebuild the bottom of that. The A-pillars and the windshield frame. And then I saved, actually, the dash out of another Mustang. Yeah, that was it. That was it. Donnie Williams, 5-speed, only way to fly. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. And like I said, my mind is always, what do I want to do next? I don't know. Troy, that jig setup for the Bronco would be sweet. There was a place somewhere in Pennsylvania, I think, that was doing Mustang skeletons, Thoroughbred GT. They would buy the Dynacorn stuff and assemble. Yeah, Thoroughbred GT is one of the vendors that one of the parts came from for this Mustang. Yeah, the Bronco setup. Apparently, there's some guy out in, I don't know, up north somewhere, Midwest. I don't know exactly. He puts together Bronco bodies, and he builds like a jig for every one of them, like a transport jig. And then he trucks that thing out west somewhere and delivers it on the jig. And then he says, here, it's all yours. And then he goes back and he builds a new jig for the next body. So every time he does that, the owner gets a jig, or basic, frame jig. And so there's a builder out west somewhere who has like a stack of these things sitting around because they don't know what to do with them. And my friend with the Broncos like, I could probably get you one of those. I said, well, that's a deal. Let me know. We'll figure it out. Derek Pro, 76 watching, only 50 likes. Come on, guys. Yes. Hit that like button. Hit that like button. 69 Stang. I am at a standstill on my 69. Anyone know where I can get a driver's side shock tower? Can't find one in stock anywhere. Yeah, that's that's the problem too. Is not having having pieces available. Rick, if they wouldn't help load it, I would have left it there. That's BS, not paid for either. Well, that's the thing, though. I had to have that floor pan to get started. I just had to. Chris, glad I have a Merc and Poncho with an all original panels because my painter, I guess, would rather deal with OEM or nothing at all. Well, I get that. Donnie, they probably don't want the responsibility to help you move it. LOL. Yeah, that's the thing. I think that was maybe that was the first one I got. Maybe. Because I also picked up the second one. And no, I picked them both up. Picked the first one up, and then the second one I think maybe they helped me with. I think. Because they come in a crate. They come with a steel cage around them, like a light-duty square tubing. And then they have OSB plywood attached to it. So that's how they come. But I think the first one they did not help me, and then the second one, I think they did. One or the other. I can't remember which now. Because I put that other one in another 65. That was the first one that I did back at the body shop. Long time ago. Long time ago. Wait, so there's 1, 2. I guess I did 3. Yeah, I did that one at the body shop. It was a 65. Then I did the light blue Mustang, and then of course the Brooklyn Pony. So yeah. Chris, probably if damaged, they'd be liable. Yeah, yeah. Terry, maybe China could send one with the next balloon flyover. Apparently, I think they said that they had a lifting capacity of like 9,000 pounds or something with that balloon. So that wasn't some little throwaway balloon. That wasn't some little toy. And from what I understand, they guesstimate there was like 2,000 pounds of equipment hanging off of it. My guess, but hey, what do I know? What do I know? Charles, late but here. Glad to hear Charles. Yep, we've had some questions about different things. Talking about the Mustang. So, like I was saying earlier, we're working on trying to get parts, and I did talk to the vendor in Utah, and he's gonna just check and see what he can come up with. In fact, he may be able to. Maybe he sent me an email already. Well, maybe it would be nice if he did. Not yet. Not yet. So, you know what though? Let me look at my my email here. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Robert is available to join me. I just saw the notification. So let me see what I can come up with here. We get Robert's input on. It's always nice to have Robert join in. Okay, Robert, I sent you an invite. Let's see where we're at here. Okay. Car Guy Troy. Original NOS stuff is getting hard to come by, and they want as much as a new car for it. Aftermarket is challenging, but a lot cheaper. Pick your poison. Yeah, that is unfortunate, but that is true. Pick your poison. Chris, I'm always looking forward to the next project, but it seems like I'll only be able to do 2 before they electrify the grid. Yeah, I'm not counting on that happening. Rick, at least not here in the States. Rick, problem with China shipping parts by bluing? Oh, by ballooning, I guess. Is they would get damaged when Brandon shoots them down, yeah. Leonard, did they ever finish that 66 you did a while back? You talking about the light blue Mustang? I think it was a 65. They have not. Turn that off. Making too much noise. They have not, from my understanding. I know they've been working on it, but it's not a priority. So, not done yet. Chris is talking to Leonard, asking him if you own a 73 Torino Sport. Okay. All right. Well, we have a guest. We're gonna welcome Robert to the stream. Here we go. There he is.
Yeah, that's me again.
How's it going?
Oh, pretty good.
Good.
I wanted to bring up something that you might want to do on your next jig. You know, you're talking about, when you welded it together and stuff just doesn't line up. Well, I have a piece of square tubing here, but essentially think of my hand as a piece of square tubing.
Right.
Okay. Well, my other hand here is, say, the mounting point that would bolt onto the car. Put a pin on the bottom of it, set that down into there, cover the bottom, and then you fill that in with epoxy, let the epoxy dry. That way, it's exactly where you want it to be. You know, there's no, you've got, it's a separate piece that mounts to the car, right, and then it just sits into the square tubing. Right. And you pour the epoxy in, and it cures exactly where it is. You don't have to worry about warpage from welding. That's why they do a lot of I know they do aircraft jigs that way. You know, like for warbirds and stuff like that.
Right.
But they do really big
stuff.
Yeah.
So you're creating a taper, is what you're creating.
Well, it's not even that. It's just you've just got, basically think of it as like a bowl, with another piece inside, and then it's free floating in there. and then you just fill it up with epoxy, and the epoxy hardens, and then it holds, holds it right where it was.
Okay, I think I know what you're saying. So you're talking about creating the jig,
You have your basic frame. It's like, okay, I
right?
come over here. It's like I've got a square post under
Right,
this area that I need to hold,
right,
and whatever the attachment point, I make that part to attach to here,
right,
and it has this piece of square tubing that goes straight down into that hole, and
right.
it doesn't matter where it is. I don't
Okay,
have to weld it. It's not going to move. You
right.
just fill it up with epoxy. Epoxy cures, and it is exactly where it's supposed to be because there's no
Right.
heat distortion.
And then whenever I see what you're saying now, and then you just unbolt it from the car.
Hmm.
Right.
And then it should,
Right.
it would be more likely not to move than welding it.
Right. I get that. Well, see, what I ran into was I didn't have any movement. I didn't have it actually shift or anything.
Hmm.
It's just the fact that the bolt was through the hole. And so with the load on the bolt, when I went to take it apart, I had
And it's such a
20,
tight.
20 thousandths to play with to find center.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
that bolt is such a tight fit into there. It's like, yeah,
right,
even if it was perfect, it's still not going to be
right.
easy to,
And
to
so,
come out. Yeah.
I was trying to bump the lift a little bit. It's like, oh, that's not it. And then I was trying to raise a jack a little bit on the lift or the jack. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay,
Yeah, and it's like, but it's like even if you did it, everything was perfect, nothing was warped.
right,
It's still going to be, well, I can't lift it, I can't, hold it, and there's going to be
right.
some binding somewhere, no matter what. Just
Yeah.
gets apart. It's just
But that
you
makes
can't do
sense
it.
what you're saying. Um, and of course, in hindsight, that's a great idea. I can't backtrack at this
No,
point.
and it's a lot more work to do it that way too.
Oh, sure.
It's more work, and then you have the issue of, if you start banging on things, it's like, oh wow, is that epoxy going to be strong enough for the abuse that you're going to put it through? It's not an airplane.
Right.
It's going to get
Yeah,
more abuse than
exactly.
an airplane.
Yeah.
It's not
So,
like just rivets and yeah.
so at this point, I'll create a channel. I will make it kind of a, I don't know if it needs to be a blunt angle or if
Hmm.
I want to curve it so that it kind of pushes it, but it won't matter as long as it's an angle,
Hmm.
and I'm squared up on the hole. I can do that with a cutoff wheel and create that, and then that'll force that alignment,
Hmm.
which will actually square up everything
Yeah.
in the process, or it should.
See, and I was thinking when you're talking about the rocker, I'm just thinking, U channel, some kind
Well,
of
yeah,
little U
and
channel, and it kind of like a frame jig, where you have the clamps and you can clamp it on and do something like that. And that way, you get it in place, like clamp it in place and it's there,
right
you
now I
know.
could do it that way, or as I'm thinking about this even more, it could just be angle iron
Hmm.
because once it's in place, it's not going to be
Hmm.
moving, and you can't
Yeah.
change the width.
Yeah. Because you have the two here, and it's basically, it's captured at that point,
Yeah,
essentially.
it's
Yeah.
captured. So I could be as simple as just angle iron to hold it in place, and then depending
Clamps
on
if you have
how
to.
what's that?
Yeah. And clamps if you have to.
Yeah, I
You
mean
put.
I've got a myriad of vice grips.
Mhm. I really like this, the $2 and $3 vice grips because you can never have too many of them.
I,
It's like,
I
for smaller stuff. It's like, it's
yeah.
like I don't care the quality of it because it's a clamp. You know.
Well, what I run into, although it's a clamp, I agree with you. I bought Pittsburgh
Hmm.
brand from Harbor Freight, and I know with some tuning and some rethreading, they'll work.
I've
I just want to
I've
throw
I've,
them. I just
I've
want to
had
throw it
some that
across the room.
yeah I've had some that won't stay shut, and you have to take a sand off of that little nub in the middle. There's the bar and there's that little nub, and you got to grind some off of there. And even some of my vice grips, I've done that to make it grip, even
Yeah,
harder.
yeah.
You know.
So my takeaway at this point is I may not be buying Vice Grip brand Vice Grips,
Hmm.
but I refuse at this point to buy Pittsburgh anymore.
What's the
It's a B. It starts with a
Bremen?
B.
Bremen?
Bremen, I think
Is
it
it Bremen?
is.
Those are really nice.
Those are
And from
really
what I'm
nice.
finding, and from what I've seen a few pictures of packages of the Bremen ones with it's half Bremen and half Milwaukee. One of the
Interesting.
parts in the Bremen package had the
Package.
Milwaukee, stamping. So
Interesting.
That tells me it's coming out of the same factory, and it just Milwaukee has that nice little handle on the end where you can tighten it. You know, put a bolt through it or something and tighten it.
Well, so does the Bremen. Hold
Yeah.
on. Keep talking. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, we'll compare vice grips here.
Yeah, this nice big Bremen here.
Yeah, I'm talking about this here.
Oh, well, see, this one has
Yeah.
you could put a quarter-inch
Uh,
drive ratchet in there.
yeah, and I think really the only difference is this right here on some of them.
Okay.
It's just they're putting this on the Milwaukee ones, and the only reason I bought Milwaukee ones is because I was in Ace and I had one of those I don't know 20-30% off coupons off of a purchase, and you
Yeah.
walk around and like I have no idea what to buy, and these things were there, so it was like less than $10 for two or three of them out the door. I was like, yeah, I'll take
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah, I'll probably
they are really nice.
and I've looked these over, and compared them to the Vice Grip brand, and of
Mhm.
course to Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and the thickness here is different. The jaws are better. The whole thing is a better Vice Grip
Hmm.
clamp than
Yeah.
than anything Pittsburgh can offer. So
Well, yeah, and it's like some of the the big C ones.
yeah,
The vice grip ones have a nice. They're flat. Okay,
yeah,
you're nice flat chiseled ends. I've got a couple of. I don't know who made them. I don't know. They're the yay long type. And they've got like little barrels at the end. So think of it like a wooden barrel, but a tiny little wooden barrel.
yeah.
So it's like two little barrels that go together,
Interesting.
and it's once or twice it's come in handy. Every other time I've thought, why don't I take a grinder to this and reshape it?
Shape it the way I want it.
I mean, they're just no name ones.
Yeah,
But you did your radio thing, and I've been looking at those things now. That
yeah.
amplifier, and I can't do the one that you bought though. The only reason is my TV doesn't have an output that would work with that amplifier. It needs a optical or an HDMI for this TV because it doesn't have a normal. It's a cheap TV.
Okay.
But there's another version of the same. It's like a
Yeah.
slightly different version of it. And it's like I was looking at. It's like okay, I can get one of those, put it up over there. And it's like I don't have any speakers. And then I'm sitting here looking. It's like okay, find something on Craigslist. I found those Bose ones. It's like, and then I'm like, but for $40 I can get two in-wall speakers and mount them in the wall, and they don't stick out and they're out of the way.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I might just do that and hook that up, and then, yeah, I really like that now.
Turn your whole garage into a sound system.
Well, that and the speakers on that TV are they're horrible.
Well, yeah.
It's $180. It's a no name TV. So, but
Yeah.
I'm not complaining with the price and what it is. It was pretty nice.
I've got a couple questions. Leonard and Chris were talking here for a second. Car guy Troy. I really would like to use my original tail pan on my 67 Vert, but it's not straight. I don't think it's supposed to be straight. Recommendations for aftermarket. I remember you buying two from Mystique, the 66, and one was better than the other. Well, original tooling is always the best. You can't find them anymore for a 66 or 5. The 67 and 8, if I'm not mistaken, it should have a subtle curve to it, just like the 5 and 6. I think. I could be wrong. I don't remember.
I just can't even remember.
I'd
Yeah,
have
the
to look
5.6 are compound curves all over the place.
Yeah.
When you really look at them.
Yeah, the tail panel I used in Jade was just an off-the-shelf tail panel. I didn't have to do any modification to it to make it work, so it fit right out of the box basically. So
You went with like three of them, I think.
not on
Two.
Jade though.
No, not on Jade, but on.
On Mystique, I went through two.
Okay.
I had one that was just horrible, just not even close, and then I had bought the original tooling, and it like boop popped
Yeah.
onto it.
And I kicked myself for not buying some of them from NPD when they had them because they weren't that expensive, to buy. It was just like I should have just bought a couple of them and put them away.
Yep. Not thinking that hey maybe they won't reproduce these anymore.
Yeah, but
Nobody knew
Yeah.
thought of that. So Leonard and Chris back and forth. Hold on. Chris is saying Tim the Toolman Taylor part of the show. Yeah. Derek, got to go, guys. Keep up the great work. Stay well. Okay, glad you're here, Derek. Appreciate your input. Evan, I got to scoot too. Have a great evening, everyone. Okay. Leonard says those work great on slide hammers. I've used mine several times. Yes, I have a custom-made slide hammer for vice grips. Car guy Troy, the tail panel has been hit. That is why I ask. Okay, I think you're right about the slight curve. Has additional slight curves. Yeah, but like I said, the tail panel I used was one I just bought off a shelf at Mustangs Unlimited. I doubt that it was like any particular name, like it was just whatever they had on the shelf. So it was good. Chris, on my 70 Fastback, I started working on the floor, and after I got the floor out, the inner rockers needed to be replaced. I think the body may be out now. Wondering if anyone has body measurements. I don't have anything written down. The advantage I have right now for when I do this stuff is I have other cars sitting here that I can measure from directly. But I can't say what the, if there's any kind of reference out there. I'm sure there is. If you go on to Mustang forums, usually there's somebody out there who has that information that they can share.
Yeah, I got lucky, and a friend of mine locally had just bought a 66 for his daughter, had it all stripped off on the front end, and I could just go over there and measure everything that I wanted, look at it and take pictures, and good timing. And it was one of these, like, other than like the quarter panel, underneath and everything, just like it looked like a 15 or 20-year-old car. It didn't look like,
Nice.
Yeah, it was a pretty nice car.
Charles, about the transmission, I originally wanted to put a 6R80 behind the CJ motor. However, after a lot of research, I found the 10-speed 10R80 will bolt up the same as the 6R, handles coyotes just fine. So, there you go. That's the answer for the transmission. I knew there was some 10 in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's that one that they, like a co-design with Ford and GM at the time. I do remember that.
Okay.
It was one of they were working together to, then they kind of split off and went their own way.
Okay.
That's as much as I know about that.
Yeah. Well, see, now, while we have the transmission answer, the question was about what engine is going to be in it. And I know I mentioned it earlier, that it's going to be not the original, from my understanding. It'll be a different engine, so maybe we'll get an answer on that as well. Chris, you're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, I don't know what I could tell you as far as you think the body is out now. I don't know what would make the body go out. I know normally what I do, I'll measure everything before I cut things apart. I did run into one situation where the floor pan and the body was actually kind of bowed in the middle after I cut out the floor pan because it had been hit in the back. And so I actually strapped it to the floor pan. I took a strap around it, pulled it together, and welded it all up. Now, without having, you're saying the inner rockers need to be replaced. So I guess you're just doing the floor itself, not a complete floor pan, is my understanding.
Well, that, and some of those measurements are out there, kind of like, for the old, some of them are going to be the same as the older ones as well. Right. Because they share less similarities as time goes on. But I know I've seen the dimensions, like for the rocker to rocker dimensions, and you would think it's parallel, but they're not. They're slightly.
There's some oddity to it. Yeah.
And there's things that you think would be really perfectly straight on the car that are not. It's interesting when you really start. It's like you think I'm on the rocker. This should be a nice, perfectly straight line. It's not. It's actually got the whole rocker is curved this way, and it's a compound curve everywhere. Yeah. It's not perfectly straight.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Okay, so Chris says he took out the inner also. I'm guessing. I don't know if he means the inner rocker panels. I'm assuming. And he says also in turn torque boxes. So so replacing. I guess you're going to replace the torque boxes as well. Sounds like it's grown. But I'm sure there's some forums out there that will have those measurements, or somebody that can put them up.
Yeah, because I haven't done any digging on those. I've run across a few, but I haven't saved anything of those, so I don't have anything.
Troy says, Chris C., I went and bought a whole other car for measurements. All the stuff on the internet is kind of suspect. The general body section is the original shop manual has cross measurements for the cars. So there you go.
And I've done that too, where I'll start searching something and go through different forums, and I'm not looking for an exact dimension. I'm just like, this guy got this dimension, that guy got that dimension.
Yeah.
You kind of get a ballpark of it's like you get an idea. You measure enough of them, you'll figure out what it's supposed to be.
Well, and then you even wonder how close, were the originals.
Yeah, and we'll never
all that
know.
sort of thing. Because, you can get these, assembly manual. And, the bad part about these is you can't read half of what's printed. They never updated the prints.
Well, but that, it's like anything else when it goes to production. You got your production line set up, and they're sitting doing this. Is like, okay, let's tweak this, tweak that. There's no records of it. They just tweaked it on the line, got it to work. You kept making it, and you went on. There was no reason for them to really document that because, hey, that's just, it's manufacturing tuning.
Yeah. I was just wondering if there was a reference in here of that sort. I don't know for sure.
Yeah,
I feel like there should be.
Yeah, and then those are actual blueprints that have been scanned, and they weren't very legible to start with.
Yeah.
The old what is it, ammonia? I think they used to.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember what the blue stuff that they used, but I think it was ammonia.
Let's see. Chris is saying, yeah, I screwed up and it did snowball into a giant, I guess, mess. Probably not message. Charles, engine will be based on the Ford FE motors, 390, 427, 428 aftermarket block for increased displacement and stroke, and size probably 482, 496, or 511. Block looks identical to 428 Cobra Jet. So there we go.
Oh. Nice. That's going to be fun. That's going to be a fun car when it's done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
It's going to be a heavy front end, too. So, when you do the suspension, take that into account on your spring choices there.
Yeah, we've already had that discussion that it's not going to have it's going to be modified.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to have modified front suspension.
Yeah.
So we were talking about that as well. We looked at the idea, what you had as an idea, but he's got another product line that he's
and what I've got is fine, but for what he's doing, I'm thinking towers need to go away.
Tower's going to stay.
Okay, you gonna keep them? Okay.
Tower's going to stay, but it's going to have reinforcement.
Okay.
So, yeah, we've had discussion about that. So.
Yeah, and there's others for what he's doing. There's other ones out there that I would pick over what I did.
Yeah, he's done his research.
Yeah.
So I know he's got something good in mind.
Yeah, because this one I've got is a great, just something above stock type upgrade is the way I look at it. And yes, it is on the car right now.
Okay, that's good.
It is on there.
We have Cobra, best metal for fastback roof, 1967. I'm not sure what you mean. Best metal, like who makes the best metal for it?
I don't think there's really a choice. I think
the only option is Dynacorn.
Yeah, I don't
unless it's Thoroughbred GT or something, or whoever that other you mentioned before about the company that actually makes some of the stuff.
Muscle Car GT.
Muscle Car GT.
But and a lot of theirs is just they make it, but somebody else puts a name on it. And,
right.
Yeah. So actual manufacturer.
By default, I'm going to say Dynacorn because I don't think anybody else makes that stuff.
No, there's certain parts that just like there's no reason for anybody else to make, especially something that big. The investment that you've got to put in to make a roof. That's a huge die that you got to make.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's like we were talking earlier, the difficulty with some of these pieces on this car is that you can't buy those individual pieces.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that becomes cumbersome. It's like, well, you know,
Oh, and I was asked the other day about, 65 and 66, the drip rails,
yeah,
not the trim, but the actual drip rails, and I didn't realize, yeah, you can't get those. I could not find them anywhere. You can
no,
get them for the fastback, but you can't. I couldn't find them for the coupe.
nope.
And it's basically, I told the guys, like, well, the best thing, what I would do is probably just buy the fastback ones.
Let
The
me
front edge is right.
let me flag you on that.
Okay.
I did that.
Okay.
I did that for Jade.
Okay.
Believe it or not, they're different. Your mind is telling you that metal is the same,
Mm-hmm.
that the trim is the same, but it's not. It's not the same width. Okay? So when I did it on Jade, I actually have a pair of fastback drip rails
Mm-hmm.
up there that I sectioned out that much. I bought them just for that piece thinking, here you go, I'm done. Whoop, all
Mm-hmm.
done.
What is it? Is it taller?
The fastback is narrower.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the trim, just as a perspective, let's say the trim piece is half an inch, just to ballpark it, half
Yeah.
inch. On the coupe. On the fastback, it's 3/16. Or
So
four,
you got you got to take
not
them.
3/16, 3/8.
So you'd
let's
have
just
to,
say.
yeah.
It's enough of a difference that the trim piece will not fit.
So yeah. Then it's like, okay, put it on, but then I got to modify I got to weld.
That's what I
Yeah.
had to do. I had to weld up
Yeah.
the edge to make that trim piece fit, and it come back and kind of bit me because I did not think about that whenever I
And
was
it's
putting it together.
and my thing would be, if I were to do another one, it's gone. I would just take them off. If I were doing another one.
I think for me it depends on the car, as in
Mm-hmm.
the Poco Mustang, rock solid. There's not a problem with any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The 67 coupe that I want to make into a fastback, I can build it back with fastback rain gutters because they're available. If it was leaving it as a coupe, I would probably just ditch them. Just
Yeah.
it just makes sense.
Yeah. It's like the ones on here were perfect.
Yeah.
There was no rust or anything, except for one little spot of where the corner of the right at the top where the lead was. They didn't do a really good job of the lead. It was kind of messy in there in the gutter, and it didn't get sealed up. And there's one little spot that's like, oh, there's a tiny little bit of surface rust in there. It's like, and that was it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, they were, on both sides, they were perfect. So I have at that point, it's just like, I hate to cut off perfectly good metal.
Oh yeah.
You
That's
know,
the thing. Chris, you guys are full of information. Great channel. I've been watching you for a few years now. Thanks for all you do. It is much appreciated. Thank you, Chris. Cobra. Thanks. These days, it is better to build a 32 Ford Roadster or buy it done, assuming you like the built one already. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Troy, didn't the 428 cars have reinforced shock towers? Seems like the aftermarket vendors sell a reinforcement kit based on those. Weld on pieces. My 390 car has some of that from the factory. Yes, this car has those. This car has those reinforced shock towers. The problem is somebody took a torch and cut holes in the back of the shock towers. And they cut the hole through the reinforcement just so they could grease the fittings. And unfortunately, I mean, if they sell them already built, that's great. We'll probably just go with that. And if they don't, and I would probably take them out of this and to put them in the back on the other towers and rebuild it to where it was back together.
That surprised me on mine. Somebody actually took the grease zerks out and put 90-degree ones in there.
Yeah.
Somebody actually did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was surprised that Jade, somebody had cut out both of those, and I had to weld all that back in. The Poco Mustang, solid, nothing damaged. So that's another thing that impresses me about that car. Charles, aluminum 2x4 Ford tunnel wedge style intake with Holley EFIs. Aluminum heads, probably Edelbrock, will have tube headers, lots of weight saved without cast iron exhaust heads and intake. See?
Yep.
Good call. Good call. This car is going to run.
Yeah, I'm already sitting here visualizing what it's going to look like in the engine compartment there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a beast.
That's
gonna be a beast.
And the supercharger on top.
There's no. I don't think there's any room for that.
There's a, take the hood off or put a hole in the hood.
Well, yeah.
Anything's doable.
Well, yeah. Anything is doable. You're right about that. You're right about that.
But it's remember the shorter was the 144 superchargers, and I just remember when you could buy the kit for like $1,000. It was just like now I look at what they cost now and I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah.
They are a fortune now.
Cobra 6970 Chargers. Do you think that the prices are artificially high now because of a fad, or will they stay at this price level? I don't see the prices dropping on those cars, honestly. There's, I mean, the supply and demand. Yeah. I mean, everything in the 60s and early 70s it's going to carry that for a long time.
And the Chryslers have always, brought a lot more money than the Fords or the Chevys. But there's fewer of them out there, and the ones that a lot of them were pretty well beat up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they were abused. Yeah.
And I looked at it one time. It was like, and this was before prices went up. And it's like, you want a fender? That was $1,000.
Yeah.
For a reproduction fender, and it's just, you got to have deep pockets to do a Chrysler.
Yeah. Well, that's what I have. A friend of mine, he is a fanatic for the 64 Plymouths.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean fanatic. Like, he has at least one of every model made in 64 of the Plymouth.
Oh,
like
wow.
If it was a 2-door hardtop, a convertible, a 4-door hardtop, a 4-door post, 4-door wagon, station wagon.
Yeah. You had a 2-door post, the 2-door no post.
He has all of them. He has all of them.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I'd shared some pictures the other, like a few weeks back on my Facebook page. He has the 64, if I remember, it was a hardtop, and he'll rebuild them to where they're mint. I mean, they look like factory correct cars. And what he'll do is he manipulates the options. Like, okay, here's an oddity. If you had that car you could either have air conditioning or you could have an AM/FM radio.
Okay.
Either or, you could not have both. The reason being, the AM/FM radio was this big, where the AM radio was this big, and there was only enough room for one with AM radio with AC.
Yeah, that makes. I didn't even think about that because you have to think about when the guys are selling the radios at the swap meets, and it's this massive brick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
So
didn't think about that.
What he's done is he found a company that will make the AM/FM radio that looks like, but it's smaller, and then he'll put in the air conditioning, and if any purist would go, oh, that's not possible, but he said, well, I know it's not possible. I'm playing with, all the bizarre stuff. He knows everything about these cars, to where it's like, well, they used a blue wire with a yellow code or a yellow stripe on the left side interior light, but on the right side it was a green wire with and just crazy facts about these things.
The obscure stuff that is the rest of us are like, I don't care.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But he'll manipulate it because he'll say, if it had that as an option, he would add it. Like if he could, he would add it to the list, just to make it that much of a nicer car. So.
Oh, and a week or two or so, my dad found a couple of pictures of his dad's trucks from way back. So I'll get those scanned in and I'll get them on here for you.
Okay.
It was orange and black, or black with orange fenders, or orange with black fenders. Of course, the picture's black and white, so it can't
Yeah,
tell.
yeah. So I got a little bonus from Tall Red Easel.
Nice.
Thank you, Tall Red Easel. Appreciate it. Get back up here a little bit.
Yeah, there's a couple up there.
So we got Car Guy Choices Charles. That sounds pretty healthy. Super fun. Cobra, what caused early Broncos to go crazy high, selling for more than Mustangs and muscle cars right now? Why? A lot of it's propaganda. If you've ever driven one, they drive like tanks. They're not. They're not like superior off-road vehicles. They're just big, heavy 4x4s that have a certain look that everybody is infatuated with. Personally, I would probably appreciate an old International Scout or a Jeep or something from that era more than a Bronco, but that's just me,
It's there's a one of the old Toyota Land Cruisers running around here.
Yeah.
Really good looking.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really nice. And those were little tanks. They just, they weren't very big, but they just go.
Yeah. Rick, I had an opportunity to purchase a 67 GT500 back in 88. Guy was asking $10,000. Only reason I didn't pull the trigger was that I needed a daily driver and worked in downtown New Orleans. Okay, that I could see that. But wow, imagine that. Imagine having that sitting in your garage. Dawn, first thing I do to Betsy was 90-degree zerk so I could stop the squeaking. It never occurred to me to punch holes in the towers. That was a pretty common butcher done on these cars, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's so much more work to do that versus just unscrew them and put 90-degree zerks in there.
You're right.
I don't understand. Sometimes when you see, a lot of these hack jobs, it's just like, why did you go out of your way to do this the hard way?
Yeah. Yeah. Charles, yes, shock towers reinforced. We'll add a reinforcing plate to outside of shock towers like Trans Am Mustangs from the 60s, 69 to 70s. Front suspension will be coilover conversion and 6-piston discs. So there you go. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, there's what's the Australian company that makes that strut that goes into the stock system?
I don't know.
I can't remember, but it's all basically it's a strut. It's an all one piece thing, and it goes all the way down to the lower control arm. It's a really nice setup, but it's quite pricey.
Yeah.
A lot of adjustability in the way it's done too. It's a pretty cool part.
Dave Tyson says did it all the time. I think he's talking about cutting up the Zerk fitting holes. Cobra, best car to buy from 83 or 84 to go up in value. Ooh.
83 and 84.
Okay, well, go with a police version Fox Body Mustang. Those are becoming more and more valuable. If you can find an old State Trooper Fox Body Mustang in that era, I know those are becoming more valuable.
And a little bit newer, if you can find a Mexican Monte Carlo, Mexican Monte Carlo SS, they came with a 350 and a manual transmission down in Mexico.
Really?
And then the Iraqi taxis were the Malibus with I think it was a 6-cylinder and a standard transmission.
Yeah.
And they were only out, shipped to there, and that was such a horrible combination for that vehicle. Right. And then go into a hot climate.
Well, I don't know if it'd go up in value though. That's the question.
No, I will say some of the parts.
Oh,
if you've got those bell housings for those cars, they sell for a fortune.
Yeah.
It's like the Grand National rear ends, which I had one, and I wish I had held on to it. I remember when they were, for $1,500 was a good deal, and now I'm seeing, some of them are going $2-3 for a rear axle.
Yeah.
Because it was a rare to get the big 8.5-inch rear end.
Yeah.
It was only in the later Grand National and the Hurst Olds 442, whichever it was of that year.
Yeah. Yeah, 83, 84, that's where I would look for in just simple thoughts here is the Mustang. Now, you also have, I don't know, there seem to be getting more popular. The IROC Camaros are starting to, or Z28 Camaros in that era are starting to.
They were fun cars, but to me, it was just they weren't built well.
Well,
you know,
no, they weren't built well,
the
but
plastics
they
were
look
cheap and
nice.
yeah, they looked nice and they were fun to drive, but interior quality was not there.
No,
You know,
I, I,
even
I,
at a
I
couple
s-
years old.
I've seen a couple of those cars with like no miles on them, and I saw one for sale, a couple months ago, and um, it was really a pretty car,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they were selling it for like 25 grand,
Mm.
and they sold it.
Well,
It went.
yeah, and another one is the would in the mid '80s would be, and I don't remember exactly what years it was. The Hurst Olds. Um, Depending on which year you get of it, those had the lightning rod shifters. So it had the automatic shifter with the three rods,
Yeah.
and the early one was a 3 speed. The later one was the overdrive one.
Oh.
So it was a slightly different shifter, and they sold that shifter aftermarket for a short time. So
Okay.
they were available, and a friend of mine in Arkansas had one, and I could never get him to part with it because I wanted one. Because like if I put that in the car, nobody's going to ever want to drive it because they don't know what to do.
Yeah. Troy, new Bronco coming out helped fuel the craze. Excuse me, a lot. 4-ish years ago, you could pick up some of these pretty cheap Scouts, Broncos, Blazers, all that stuff went to the moon. Yep. Yeah, I mistakenly, I say mistakenly, I don't know. I had bought a 72 GMC Jimmy with a big lift kit under it, big tires under it, and it was a factory AC, power steering, power brakes. Um, I, th- I don't remember if it was an automatic or a 4-speed. The engine was gone, but it was a very, very solid Jimmy. I
Hmm.
picked it up, brought it home, and I was like, I don't know when I'm going to get to that. And I sold it. I just,
A friend of mine had one of the K5 Blazers,
yeah.
and that was it was just like he wanted me to work on it. He wanted me to change the heads on it. So I changed the heads on it. The problem is the top of the grill is up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a nightmare to work on that thing to get enough ladders and scaffolding on the
Yeah.
around it, and they
That's the
climb
way
up
this one
there and you're
was.
laying over it.
That's the way
It
this
was
one was.
miserable.
It was way
Yeah,
up here.
it was miserable to work on. And I told him afterwards, it's like next time just pull the whole engine, put a new engine in.
Yeah.
You know,
Rod is saying the SVO is 83, 84. I
okay,
mean, that's a good possibility. Yeah.
yeah,
Rick Stevens says the old 442. That's a good one.
hmm
Rod, 84 to 86 SVOs could be cars to watch. Yeah, you're probably right, honestly.
and I'm trying to think of anything Chrysler of that time that would be.
Le Baron.
I don't know of anything. I don't know of anything
Oh.
Chrysler of that time that was.
They had the Cordoba, the Aspen.
I,
There's
yeah,
nothing there. They had a
no,
Magnum. They did have a Magnum. They did have a Magnum in that time period, I believe.
yeah, and all the little cars with the Mitsubishi turbo engines in them, and
Yeah.
uh,
Let's see, Walt. Hey guys, I have a question. I have a convertible top Mustang, and I have a transmission from a 289 engine. I don't know if it's a 3-speed or 4-speed top loader. How can I tell?
I'm not the one to ask on that.
I don't know either.
Do not know.
There's got to be some configuration that gives it away. Um,
I'm pretty sure Don would probably know.
yeah, Don would probably say, "Oh, there's 3 bolts on this one and 4 bolts on that one on the side cover."
Hmm.
That's probably be the answer. So if anybody has any input on that, by all means, let them know. Cobra, is it me or does the vehicles in general on Bring a Trailer go for more than other sites? I've seen crazy prices on this site. I haven't even looked at that site, so I don't even know for sure.
I don't
Myself.
really pay attention to any of them.
No.
Any of those are just so far out of the price range that I just don't even look. So
Yeah. Like I looked at on Facebook. There was a '67 coupe popped up. No drivetrain, no suspension under it. It was basically a body that needed a lot of work. I think the guy had 4 fenders with it, some odds and ends, and the price wasn't bad.
hmm
He wanted, well, it's at $1,000 now,
hmm
and I'm like, well, that's not bad. When you give you something to start with.
yeah,
But the difficulty is, it's like 100 miles away from me, and I'm not going to go get it and drag it back here and try to hide it in the woods somewhere.
Yeah, and if I got it, I'd have to hide it somewhere.
Yeah, that's
'Cause,
the thing.
yeah, I'd have to hide it. I'd have
Well,
to hide it
I'm
on
not
some.
I'm not very good at hiding. I
Right.
tried.
And my neighbor across the street, he's got way too many cars coming and going. And he just got another Miata again, so
Oh,
he's got like 4 or 5 things. He's got one little. I can't remember. I think he's got a Subaru in there now, a Japanese market one, the right hand drive thing in there. He goes for all sorts of weird. He does the import stuff, but he does some odd stuff, and I
yeah.
can't hide anything. He ain't got room.
Okay, so Don says top loader 4-speed has 3 arms and shift rods. 3-speed only has 2 of each. Well, see, is
Okay.
that maybe I'm confused by when it says top loader, because my mind says top loader is like the shifter goes into the top of the transmission, whereas the standard configuration, like you're saying, I understand that you got 3 arms or 3 mount points for the rods, and 3 shift arms. So three rods. You have one for first and second, one for third and fourth, and then secondary or third one for reverse. Whereas on the 3-speed, you only have one for first and second, and the other one for third and reverse. So, or actually, I take that back. Reverse and first are on the same plane, and second and third are on the same plane. But my mind is telling me top loader is a shifter go in the top. When I hear that, that's what I think. So,
I, I'm not coordinated enough to drive standards well, so that's why
okay,
part of why I don't like them, because I have no coordination.
yeah,
Part of the reason I don't like them, so I haven't learned enough about them to.
yeah,
I
I
don't
get you.
want to. It's just like I have no desire to learn that. So
Okay, Ray Buckman is checking out. So glad you're here, Ray. Troy, Fox Pods are going up pretty fast. Firebirds, Camaro, same thing. SVO is probably the car to buy as investment. And if you could find a 84 GT350 20th anniversary car, that would work too. Okay, I'll take your word for it. I don't know if I've seen one of those. Larry checking in from Japan. Buick Grand National maybe for that time frame. Yeah, that's a
Grand
good
National,
possibility.
Grand National's always been a desirable car since it was made. I mean, it's one of those that the prices have been nuts since
Yeah,
day one. And then if you've got the GNX, oh geez.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, there is a guy making. You have to get on a waiting list, because they had that special rear end. They do the die casting for all the parts back there, because that was McLaren designed rear end in those,
Okay.
and it has a different linkage entirely. But there's you can I want to say last time I checked it was like $3,500, and you buy the parts from them, and you have to rent the jig to put on the car to weld in the extra points that it mounts into. But it would it's like if you had an endless budget, it fit any G body, which is cool. It's not just a
Yeah.
Grand National. But then you have to have that $3,000 half-inch or 8.5-inch rear end for it too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're in it. By the time you do it, you're in it for 10 grand.
Yeah. Rick Stevenson says the Dodge Omni GLH.
I remember the Omni. Yep.
Yeah, I remember the Omni.
Yeah.
I don't know about the GLH.
Uh,
Rick Gain, Dodge Omni or Aries K car. Well, yeah, those are not probably good investments.
yeah.
But yeah, those are things Dodge made. You're right.
Yeah.
Denny in a SVO look for a competition prep car. Okay.
Don't know what that is.
Uh,
The new one for me.
I'll take his word for it. Oh yeah, Chrysler had that Daytona Shelby that's gaining in money. Yeah, I saw 2 of those
Yeah.
on Facebook Marketplace, and the guy wanted way too much money for them. They were sitting out in the field or out in the woods, covered in pine needles and junk, and I think he wanted like $10,000 for those things. I was like, no. Al, what would you price a '69 Mach 1 351 4-speed, still in original paint with only minor tail panel rust? About $1,500, somewhere around there.
I'll give you. I'll go. I'll go 1,501.
Yeah, 1,500 would be a good number. So if you want, you could send me an email and I'll come get it.
Yeah, and if you got another one, I'll come take it too.
That's a tough question to answer. I've seen those cars. I've seen cars for sale that are painted, ready to go, and drivable for going for 42, 45, somewhere in that range. I've seen cars that are in the original status, like you're saying, and you say minor tail panel rust. That's that always comes into play. honestly, it might be a $25,000 to $30,000 car. Without seeing it, I can't say for sure. To the right person, it might be more. Somebody else, it might be slightly less. So it depends on what you want to get out of it. I mean, I can't really. It's really hard to say without seeing one in person, or seeing it in person and really looking it over.
And don't ask me because I'm a cheapskate.
Well, they're going up in value. That's just
Yeah.
the reality.
Oh
of it.
yeah. Yeah.
Charles, top loaders refer to how you rebuild them. The gears and parts load from the top plate. Okay, well, thank you, Charles.
Okay.
That makes more sense. And Dawn, gears are loaded from the top, has a 10 or 12 bolt holding the sheet metal cover. So there's another answer, 10 or 12 bolt. Cobra, 93 Caprice 9C1 cop package. Any thoughts? Drove one in Vegas when I was a taxi driver, always on the gas or brakes. Could not brake the car, and it was fast. Well, that's hard to find.
Cars. Yeah, they were good cars. One of the modifications you can do on those, if you can find it, is you find a limo or a hearse. And the limos and the hearses had a different lower control arm and a few other suspension parts for the heavier duty service that they were going through.
Okay.
They for some reason didn't put that stuff on the police cars. I don't know,
That's
but
weird.
they put them on the limos and the hearses, and I think that was it. I don't think they put them on anything else. But there was some different heavy duty stuff they put on those cars, which you can then put onto. And that was one of the problems the Caprices did have. Well, all the police cars, were losing ball joints and stuff because they were just led a hard life.
Yeah, yeah. That's good information, though. I didn't even think about that. Rick Shelby built GLH, had a turbo 2.2. GLH stood for goes like hell. Okay, I'll take your word for it. I'm drawing to a close. We're going on 2 hours. I know we still have 74 people watching, which is fantastic, but I got to get in the house. My wife is making chicken pot pie, and I'm hungry.
Oh, and I'm gonna have to make a dash through the rain because I hear it sprinkling out there.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
while she gets to be in Florida, but she
has to be. She doesn't get to be. She has to be.
She didn't mention the worst part. You know where she was at before Florida? She was in Puerto Rico.
Oh, that's just terrible.
But that's okay. I'll get her back in May. I'll get her back for all those in May because I'm going on vacation, taking Mom on vacation to her favorite place in the world without Jerry.
Okay. All right. Well, glad you were here. All
right. We'll talk to you later.
We'll talk to you later. Okay. That was a good show. We've been busy the whole time, sharing information, talking about stuff, questions, answers, all good. Everybody gets a bell. How about that? All right. So at this point, I do plan to be here next Monday at 7 o'clock once again. I think the following Monday, I have an event that I'm going to. And unlikely that I'll be able to do the broadcast. I know it's very rare that I miss one, but the 2 weeks I probably won't be able to make that one. But anyway, I want to tell you all I appreciate you, and I'm glad you were here. And we'll be back next week, 7 o'clock. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.